Hi, I'm Kim, and in this tutorial we are going to make a two-colour card trick quilt block which looks just like that, and it works because we've got this amazing three colours going on which creates a 3D effect. So let me show you how to make this. Let me just switch to my cutting table. There we go. So that's the one I've just shown you, and we're going to need three colours for this. We need a dark fabric, a medium fabric and a light fabric. And it works because we have these three fabrics playing against each other to make a 3D effect. So I'll put that to one side. These are my three colours, and you're going to need to cut them into squares. So out of each of your dark, your medium and your light, you will need to cut 2 squares from each colour in a 5 1/4 inch square. Then you are going to do the same. You're going to cut 2 squares from your dark, your medium and your light, but this time a 4 7/8 inch size. So you have 2 sets of squares, 5 1/4 and 4 7/8. So once you've cut those, I'm going to move on to show you what to do with them in the next section. Just before we get started, if you'd like the full written instructions complete with images from cutting requirements to step-by-step instructions all the way through, so that you can, I can't turn the pages, so that you can follow this while you're watching the video or download for afterwards, then you can download this completely and utterly free. All you need to do is come along to my Facebook community, which is called Confident Quilting for Beginner Quilters. I've put the link in the description below here. I've also pinned it to the first comment, so you'll be able to find it. So just hop along there and you'll find, ask to join, and you'll find the instructions in there together with the video for today as well. If you can't find it when you're in there, just ping me a message within the group and I will tag you into the post with the instructions, so you can download those for free and keep those. So let's get on to the fabric requirements then. First up then, we need to take 1 medium and 1 light square from your 4 7/8 inch squares, and we need to take 1 dark and 1 light of each of your squares from your 4 7/8, and we are going to turn these into half square triangles. Now I am going to do this pretty quickly for the purposes of this video, but if you're new to making half square triangles, I've got a whole full tutorial on how to do exactly that. If you look over there, you will see a little link pop up at the top of your screen to take you to the half square triangle tutorial that I have done. I will also put it in the description just down there so you do not miss it. So to make our half square triangles, we are going to place our squares right sides together. And make sure that if you've got a fabric that is really difficult to see which is the right and the wrong side, you have actually got them right side together. I do like to check this fabric. I'm going to draw a diagonal line down the middle, and the same again on the medium and the light pairing. Straight down the middle. And I am going to stitch either side of that line there. Okay, I'm at my machine and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch either side of this central line that we have just drawn. One side. that, and we'll do exactly the same with the dark and light pair. So pressing pad, my little iron, and I'm pressing towards the darker side. So there's that one, and we're going to do the same on all 4 half square triangles. That's the pressing finish then. So we have 2 of each of our dark half square triangles and our medium half square triangles. I'm going to put those to one side, and then our next job is to get a dark and a medium from your 5 1/4 inch squares, one of each, and we're going to turn these into quarter square triangles. So if you haven't made quarter square triangles before, I've got a tutorial for you on that one. So again, check over there or just up there and you will see a little link pop up to make quarter square triangles. And if you check the description below, I'll also put it down there for you. So we make them in pretty much the same way. We flip them right sides together, matching up the edges nice and neatly. And we draw a diagonal line. Just like before, and we stitch 1/4 inch either side of that. And we stitch, as I said, 1/4 inch either side of that line, except my foot pedal has run away with me since the last time. Does it do that with you? Does it run away underneath the sewing table? That's one side. And the other side. Got stitching either side of the pencil line, and just as we did before, we are cutting up that diagonal line, and we will be pressing those towards the dark side. To turn these into quarter square triangles, then we flip one on top of the other. So these are the 2 half square triangles we've just created. We flip one on top of the other, but we want to put the dark on the medium and the medium on the dark. So we do that. We make sure that we've lined up this diagonal line nice and neatly. You can see that there's a quarter square triangle starting to appear. We make sure that that is lining up neatly underneath. And we draw a diagonal line. And we do the same thing again. We stitch either side of that. And having stitched that, just like we do with the half square triangles, we then cut up that middle diagonal line. And then you have 2 quarter square triangle mini blocks. So you would press those to one side. It doesn't matter which side. Save one of these for your second block if you're going to make more than one block, so you can save that for a future project. We're going to press that to one side, and that's our center quarter square block made. So next then, we're going to take our remaining dark and medium squares from our 4 and 7/8 inch sizes, and we're going to just simply cut them in half into triangles. My ruler, which doesn't want to be picked up, so just on the diagonal to turn them into 2 triangles. The dark and that's the medium. Next then, we are going to take our remaining 5 1/4 inch squares, and we are going to pair up one of the dark and one of the lights, and the medium and the other light, and we're going to make half square triangles out of those, exactly as you did before. So I will make those and I will see you in the next section. We have our half square triangles then, and we have a pair of our dark half square triangles and we have a pair of our medium half square triangles. I'm going to do the same on both pairs, but I'm going to deal with the dark first. What I'm going to do is turn each of these half square triangles round so that the dark colour is on the top and the seam is horizontally along the middle, just like so. Then I'm going to get my rotary cutter and my ruler, and I'm going to cut from corner to corner up the middle there. Make sure you are accurate. So that's that one, and then move that very carefully over there so you can see this one, and then I am doing the same to this square there, or this half square triangle here. So you have your 2 half square triangles that we have cut in half with our colour on the top, and you are going to be using the left hand sections that we've just cut off. So the right hand ones, we can put those to one side. We don't need those for this, but we do need the 2 left hand segments. So those are those, and we're going to do exactly the same with the medium. So if I get my medium squares or half square triangles, so those are the medium, we turn them around so that the seams are in the middle with the coloured section on the top and medium fabric on the top, and I'll take one at a time and cut them from corner to corner, cutting that seam in the middle. Making sure you are accurate as you go. And then the same again, we are going to use the 2 left hand segments that we've got the colour on the top, we've got the light colour on the bottom, the point is to our left, this, what's that called? The hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is on our right. So these are the sections that we need for this. You'll see that we can't use the other half, because when we turn it round, that colour triangle finishes on the bottom, and that is no use for our card trick. So you can discard the 2 right hand bits, but we're keeping these 2 left hand sections. Okay, so then we're going to join them together with our triangles. Next, we take our left hand segments that we've just cut. We take those single triangles that we cut just before, and then we take one of the dark triangles and we take one of the medium and light combinations and we stitch those together. So you would flip them right sides together and simply stitch down the long edge like so. So we'll do that for the medium and the light, the two medium and lights, and attach a dark like so. And then for our dark and light combinations, we're attaching one of the medium to each of those. And then when we've done that, we're going to press towards the single triangle. So let me get my machine and show you how to do that. Okay, at the machine, I've got my left-hand segment here of my medium and my light. I've got my dark here. I'm flipping it over right sides together and matching up the long edge, or hypotenuse if you want to be really fancy. But you know, long edge, long edge is fine. So I'm matching this up. Now, when we're stitching this, we need to be careful because we're on the bias here. So we don't want to be pulling it out of distortion, or pulling it out so it distorts. So I'm just going to be careful as I stitch down this edge. Okay, so I've got another little block made, and I'm going to do exactly the same for the other triangle combinations. So here's the other medium and light and the big dark triangle. Get the points matched up, so it's a bit fiddly just to get the points and all the edges lined up. So that's that one, and then we do exactly the same with our dark and our light and our medium triangle squares or triangle combinations. Making sure that all the sides are nicely matched up. There's that one done, and then last but not least is our final one. Again, making sure, I tell you, it's just not easy trying to match this up with my camera in the way, doing it on top of my machine. There we go, and the final one. So that's those 4 little blocks done, and I am going to press towards this bigger triangle. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you in the next section. Now we have to do our layout ready for stitching. So I'm going to start with my 1/4 square triangle block in the middle, and I'm having my dark fabrics top and bottom as I'm looking at this. Then I'm going to get my my 1/2 square triangles, the dark 1/2 square triangles, and I'm going to place one of the dark square triangles, top left, with the dark facing inwards. And I'm trying to get this so that all on camera so you can see. I am going to have to overlap the fabrics a little bit just so that you can see how all the layout goes. But if you've printed off my instructions, then all the layout is in there and you can copy that. So I have one half square triangle with the dark facing into the middle, and I have my other dark half square triangle with the dark on the bottom right facing up into the middle. So that's top left, bottom right. Then I'm going to take my medium half square triangles and I'm going to do the same on the opposite corners. So I take one of the mediums with the medium facing into the middle, and the second one with the medium facing into the middle from the bottom left. Okay, so far so good. Now we take our little combination triangle blocks. Do you see these? And these you can go a bit bonkers with, but just go with me. So the first thing, we're going to take the combination where we've got the smaller medium and light with the larger dark. And that one is going to go at the bottom, just here, with the dark matching the dark and the medium matching up with the medium. So we've got a dark and a dark and a dark and a medium and a medium. Can you see that? I'll just pop that in place again. That goes in the middle so the darks are facing. You can now start to see we've got a triangle forming there. And we're going to put this the same at the top end, the top of the block in the top row, where we've got the dark and the dark matching up to make a nice big triangle, and the medium and the medium, and then we've got dark matching here. So far so good. Then we take our medium large fabric combination. So we've got a medium large triangle and we've got the smaller dark and smaller light, and we're doing the same thing now on the sides. So we'll put one here where we've got the medium matching the medium and the dark matching the dark. So you can see we've now got that square forming there. And then over on this side, we can put the green. So it's quite easy to kind of look at it and wonder which way around that's supposed to be going. We've got that triangle forming our side of the square there. So the triangle's facing into the middle, our medium green, with the small green matching that green on the top square there. So you can see this is now taking shape. Now we have to stitch them together, but there's a few things I want to cover off in the stitching together that you just need to be aware of. So let's do that next then. So before I start stitching, I've got my machine set up and I've got my layout just to the left of my machine. I know it's just off camera, but it's the same layout that we've just done. It's just to the left of my machine. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to take the bottom row so that you can see. We've got various things going on here. We've got two diagonal lines there. We've got diagonal lines there. And we've got what's going on up here will be a point ultimately. So we need to be careful when we're stitching these together, but never fear, we can do this. So let's just take one at a time, and this is what you're going to do with all of the diagonal seams when you get to them. I'm going to take two at a time, obviously. I'm going to flip this right hand over on top of the left. So then we're going to look at this diagonal seam. And if I open it up, can you see if I've just put one on top of the other and it's not really matching up? So I need to make sure by shuffling with my thumb that those seams match up nicely. And roll it into place. It's just a little bit of care that you need to take when you're stitching diagonal seams, because what you want is a nice crisp finish when you are sewing these together. So can you see I've just by moving the fabric around, it's shuffled out of place. So I'm holding it and pinching it between my finger and thumb to move this seam back into place. And I'm going to hold on to it and then I'm going to stitch it. So let's just angle the camera slightly at my machine that you can see. Just about. I appreciate this is off the top of your screen. Let's move that camera in a little bit. So that's ready to go. Check I'm on 1/4 inch. And sew down. Before I go any further, I want to open that up and check what it's been doing up here, which is a nice, crisp, perfect point, because these are the edges of our cards. This is a card trick, so we need to make sure the corners of our cards are nice and sharp, so that's okay. Now we need to sew on our other half square triangle block, but you've got all this twizzled around. So let's angle the camera back again so you can see. Because I've sewn from this direction, I need to turn this around to make sure that I'm not losing the plot and I'm not sewing the wrong bits together. So the same thing here. I've made sure that my greens are matching. I'm flipping it over. And I need to make sure that this seam here is going to match. Okay, so I'm holding it, but I want to be stitching it from this side. So let's get that into position. Make sure that this seam matches up beautifully there. Get all the sides lined up. Get it to your machine. Let's angle the camera. And before I start stitching, I'm still going to make sure my edges are matched up. There is a little bit of fiddling, and make sure that that diagonal seam lays on top of that diagonal seam. Okay. And if it's all good to go, then I'm giving myself a nice 1/4 inch seam down there. Open it up, and we've got a second point going on there. So that's what we're after for the bottom. Don't forget you've turned it around to stitch it. So I'm turning it around the right way, and I'm going to put it in position back with my block that I need to stitch up. So I'm putting that over there. Now you need to do the same for all of your rows, your other 2 rows, and be careful when you're stitching those diagonal seams, and just take a bit of care matching those up. So I'll do that, and then in the next section I'll show you what to do to sew the rows together, because then we have straight seams and diagonal seams. Oh joy! So let me stitch those up and I'll see you in the next section. Before I show you how to stitch these seams together to get them all matched up, we need to press these first. And we need to press, so the bottom and the top rows you need to press with your seams going to the outside squares, outside blocks, and then the middle row you need to press so that your seams go towards that middle block where your 1/4 square triangle is. So let's do that quickly now. Forget my iron. So I do find it easier to do this from the wrong side. That's that one. And if you're turning it around to do your pressing like I am, always be aware of what your layout is so you put it back in the right place. And and really get into these points with the tip of your iron so that we get nice sharp points. And you can get the points with a bit of manipulation with your iron there. And there's that one there. And if you're not happy with any of your points, this is the time to unpick and do a bit of a re-stitch. So that's my bottom row. And then we do the middle row towards the middle. Making sure everything's flat. Switch that over. And then switch that over here. Okay, there's that one. And then the top, again, we're going out to the sides. Out to the sides there, and press from the other side to get really into those points. Okay, so those are our 3 rows all nicely pressed. So let's get on to matching those tricky seams in these sections here. But don't worry, you can do it. We'll do that together. Having pressed those seams then, we've now got to join up these middle seams on each of the rows. So let's have a look at these. We've got the straight seam going down the middle, and then we've got the diagonal seams. So when we join these diagonals together, they will end up with a point of the edge of one of our cards. We've got a 1/4 inch seam top and bottom, so don't worry that it doesn't look like it's going to make a point at the moment. It will do once we've stitched them together. So that's that bit there. When we look at the other one, you can see we've got the point here of the bottom of one of our cards, but we've got to attach this bottom section on. So we need to make sure that we're stitching across just at the bottom of this point here so we don't cut off the bottom of our card. So don't worry, there's a lot that's happening here, but I'm going to go through it with you, as I said. So let's move the top row out of the way. We don't need that for the moment. And we're going to put the middle row on top of the bottom row. We will need pins for this one. That's an essential. And I'm going to take one seam at a time. First of all, I'm going to match up that central seam so it's in the correct place. So if I hold it closer to the camera, can you see I've got this central seam pretty much lined up. Then the next thing I'm going to do is get it lined up and match the raw edges here. And then I need to stick some pins in. But what we'll be doing is stitching along the point. So let's stick some pins in. I like 3 pins. I put 1 in the seam and then 1 either side. If I just flip this over to show you, can you see that we've got our stitching making a triangle at the top? It is the point of our triangle, and it's along that bit where those two, this stitch line and this stitch line meet. That's where we're going to be stitching to get our sharp point. And you can't quite see it on this side, so if you want to stitch it from the side where you can see, absolutely do that. So what I'm going to do is stitch a very short distance, about 1 inch, just either side of those pins, and I'm going to put my stitch length up to 5, which is the maximum my machine will go, and I am purely going to stitch across there, making sure that I cross that little point there. So let's do that. Let's move my machine into view, put my camera on the machine so you can see, and I'm putting my stitch length up to 5. Now I can promise that I unpick just as much as everybody else, maybe less now, I'm a bit more practiced at it, but we've got lots of things going on this seam. We've got diagonals, we've got your fabrics on the bias, you've got straight seams to match. So don't worry if you stitch and unpick, but this is why I do a little inch tacking stitch first. So that's why I'm putting my stitch length up to 5, because it becomes a tacking stitch. And I'm only stitching an inch because if I need to unpick, I don't have much to unpick. And I'm going to go slow across these pins and making sure that I go across that point. Okay, so can you see I've crossed this point here? If I hold it right up to camera, you can see that I'm right across that point. Now I still don't know whether it's matched inside because I've got to have hit it the other side. So let's take the pins out and have a look. This is the time that you offer sacrifices to any stitching gods that you happen to know of. I can't see to undo my fabric, so let's undo it and see. Okay, now when I've given that a good press, can you see that that makes a sharp point? If you let the fabric relax, it looks like it's out of position, but you are going to be pressing into this. So I'm going to pretend my fingers are the iron and pull it into position that it would be once it's stitched. And I am very happy with that as a point. So that's what you're aiming for. Now we're going to do exactly the same the other side. I'm not going to do any more stitching around there just for the moment. I'm going to worry about this side. And the same thing, I've got this point that I need to match. So, or I need to keep. So same thing again. I'm matching that center seam. I'm putting some pins in. The more the merrier in my world. There's nothing wrong with pins. That's what they're there for. Just make sure my raw edges are all matched up. And then the same thing on here. You can see we've got a stitch line coming up, making a point, and that's where we need our new stitch line to go across. So if I can see it, there's a pin in the way. So can you see it's just there? That's where I need to cross. So I'm going to move this pin over a little bit so it's not in the way, so that I can see what I'm doing. So I line up my machine and my needle. And again, I'm only sewing about an inch with my tacking stitch length, my 5mm stitch length. So let's go very slowly across that point. The reason for going slow is you do not want to stitch fast when you've got pins in place, because if your needle hits one of those pins, it'll break and go flying. So it looks like it's okay from this side. I can see my tacking stitch is going across that point, but let's have a look when we actually get inside. Fingers crossed, please. Okay. And there we can see we've got that point very nicely there. So thank you, universe. And if that's okay, both sides, I'm not unpicking that. I'm going to put my stitch length back down to its standard 2.5. Get it in position. Don't forget at the top here, before we start stitching, we've got another diagonal seam. So I need to be worrying about that as well now. You see, there's all sorts of things going on with this. So a little bit of fiddling and holding and getting it into position. And if I'm happy, and if you want to, there's no reason why you couldn't, I'm going to put this up a little bit, you couldn't just do a little mini stitching over this little bit here if you're a bit worried about whether you're going to match that as well. So you could do a little mini basting stitch over that diagonal there to see whether you've matched up, which indeed I have. And then what have we got going on at the other end? We've got the same going on at the other end, so you could do that as well. Make life easier for yourself. You don't need to be a hero and say, look, I did it with no pins. Well, I haven't got pins, but I do this little bit of additional stitching if I've got tricky seams. So that's the bottom. Oh, I've run out of bobbin, so I've had to refill the bobbin. So let's come at that again then. And check that we've made our point, which I'm quite happy with there. And then if I'm happy with all of that, then I put my stitch length down to 2.5 again, or 2.4 if you've got a Janome. And all I am going to do, I'm not going to take those tacking stitches out. I am purely going to stitch all the way down, carefully going over those stitch lines, because I know that they are in the correct place. And then do a final offer to whoever happens to be listening, and make sure that we've got a good match in the middle and we've got a good match over on this left hand seam there. So that's the bottom row, and you do exactly the same with the top row. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish. Okay then, so we've got the top and the bottom rows stitched on, and the very last thing that we need to do is give this a good press. And actually now it doesn't matter which way your seams go, they can go towards the outer or into the middle, wherever they want to fall. So we'll give those a quick press, getting into those seams where you've just been stitching. My seams seem to want to go to the outside. Oops. I just like to give it a good press from the wrong side as well, so we don't get any seams going the wrong way. If you need to get your iron in to sharpen up any of these little corner seams, absolutely do that. So there we go. So that is our block, which can join in with the other one that I made earlier. And then you've got the makings of a quilt. So I hope that has helped you to make your first card trick block. They're not for the faint-hearted and they're not for absolute beginners, but they're definitely a block for you to get well practiced at your half square triangles and matching all those seams. So do let me know how you get on. Stick a comment below to let me know how you get on. If you're a member of my Confident Quilting for Beginner Quilters group, please put a photo in there because I'd love to see what you've been making. And please do like and share and subscribe as well to the video, because it really helps these videos my channel get to other beginners just like you. Hope that has helped, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.